And joining us now live from Rugby in the United Kingdom to discuss this further, please welcome once again Professor Tim Wilson. Professor, always a pleasure to have you back on this show. Thank you so much for joining us once again.
Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. Yes.
Well, I was so excited that you finished your report there by referring to the Dublin regulation. Problematic. It's never quite worked because it puts so much pressure on those states with a Mediterranean border, the poorer countries of Europe, to keep the refugees to keep the migrants who make it to those countries. So countries like Greece, and Italy, which don't really have the resources to deal with the larger numbers that are arriving on their shores. So for Boris to appeal to a sort of a reinvention of the Dublin regulation, which is what he does on the third page of his letter to Monsieur Macron, is to a certain extent to rub the French president's nose in something that isn't working anyway. So it was almost calculated to be insulting. A really, really bad diplomatic move.
Indeed. I mean, we have been experiencing spats between the two over various issues, as we have been discussing for some time now. So let's get into this one right now. The blame game between France and the United Kingdom has worsened, and there was a fishing ground. Now the attention has turned towards this illegal crossing. So where do we stand as of now in this diplomatic standoff?
Well, it's getting particularly bad. But I think this particular issue is something that has to be dealt with. If you look at the numbers, the numbers are astonishing. This year, I think 31,000 migrants have attempted to cross the Channel. 25,000 have arrived, certainly. This is up from just over 8,000 last year and 1,835 in 2019. This is an astonishing explosion of migration. Now, we could say on the one hand this is a result of Brexit, opening up the borders and no longer applying to the UK since its exit from Europe. We could also say this is a response to the desperation of the migrants themselves to change their lives. We can talk about the people smugglers. 1,500, I believe, have been arrested in France this year. So France is not doing nothing; it's doing quite a lot. The border between France and Britain, that water border is porous and it's long and it's almost impossible to patrol. What we possibly need are the little boats, which I know Turkey is deploying along its borders. These manless boats, but we need a better way of processing the border, because what we've got at the moment doesn't work. And then possibly we need to look at the original 1951 UN Refugee Convention and the 1967 Protocol, because these clearly are not working. They were designed as a world response to the attempted genocide by the Nazis, and we're facing different pressures now. So maybe we need to look at these conventions, because the other thing is, we've suddenly started to make this distinction between what we call a genuine refugee, somebody who is fleeing for their lives, who is in genuine fear of their lives, and somebody who wants a better life, what is often termed now an economic migrant. But if you look at it, the United States founded precisely on these two principles. Now one is judged today to be relatively sound or reluctantly sound, and the other, the economic migrant, is judged to be dodgy. And that seems to me to be a spurious and very modern distinction. And it's made even worse by the fact that very often when people arrive in their chosen destination, whether that is Britain or whether that is Turkey or whether it's Germany, they no longer have papers. So how can we make how can we judge this distinction between one type of migrant and another? And then we have to look at the administration by the respective governments, particularly in Britain. When we look at the way the Home Office operates in complete and utter chaos, 50% of the refugee cases which are brought and then rejected by the Home Office are overturned on appeal. That means the Home Office is making 50% error in its judgment. Now, I don't see that as a mark of competence. I see that as a mark of complete and utter chaos. So there's so many things we have to adjust. We can't simply apportion blame and say, France, you're not patrolling your borders properly. It's your fault.
Interesting indeed. I mean, that is a question that needs to be answered when we think about it, like the distinction between an economic migrant versus a refugee, and how are we going to answer that, and what kind of infrastructure needs to be created for that. That is something to think about. So when we talk about these tensions between the two, right now, do you think they're going to be increasing? I mean, and does it have something to do, does AUKUS also play into it in terms of the alliance between the United States, UK, and Australia? I mean, what is happening exactly between France and the UK right now? It doesn't seem serious, but it sort of seems like a playground fighting, some would say, in a way, where there are these jabs being taken at each other, insults, but it does not seem serious. But how much do you think it could increase and escalate over time?
Well, I think we're demonstrating, if we can't get on with our nearest neighbour and our oldest ally, then we're demonstrating a level of diplomatic incompetence which doesn't bode well for our reputation in the world. So we have to sort that out. At the same time, we know that a little spat with France plays well to a domestic audience, and similarly, a little spat with Britain plays well to a domestic audience in France. President Macron is facing a serious challenge from the right wing, and he needs to set himself up as somebody who is strong, somebody who is going to defend the borders of the EU, and somebody who's going to make it clear, particularly to countries like Poland, that any form of Brexit by any other country would not be tolerated. So there are many messages being sent by France and many messages being sent by Britain. At the same time, we have to recognise. I think Boris is not diplomatically naive, and Boris has the advantage of being able to converse quite comfortably in French. But I think he is relying on a Home Office minister who is unbelievably inept. Every minister that she has taken control, there are allegations which are leaking out to the press daily of bullying and of a particularly nasty atmosphere. I don't see that in the long term she is going to do any good in this office, and she is doing more harm. So we face a situation now where here we have an opportunity on Sunday for a number of European countries to get together and look at the migrant crisis holistically. And we're out of that group. We're not there. We were initially invited, and now we're not invited. I don't know whether Priti Patel could have had anything to contribute, but the fact that we are de-invited doesn't look good, and it doesn't look good for her. So, we have to rethink that.
Doesn't look good right now, but if we were to look forward to the future right now, what do you think these countries need to be doing in order to mend their ties, in order to focus on the real issues right now, and how to solve these issues right now? What would you say needs to be done?
I think we have to look beyond this idea of trade. We have to look to the things that unite us, and we have so many things that unite Britain and the main countries in Europe and beyond Europe. And at the moment we have focused almost exclusively on trade relationships, and we need to think and talk in much bigger language. At the moment, we should not be a nation that is suffering a national slight because our Home Secretary has been de-invited from an event that really we should be present at.
Indeed.
And at the same time, we should not be thumping the table and saying, oh, we gave you 54 million pounds in July, we gave you 44.5 million pounds in 2018 to police your own borders, and we want to supervise. We want to supervise you. We want to do these border patrols with you to make sure you're actually doing your job. I mean, who was it now? One of the ministers in France got quite upset about this and said, we are not your collaborators or assistants, and then pointed that the smugglers are often housed in the UK anyway. It's damning, but we need to move beyond these specifics, and we need to be more statesmanlike in our relationship with our neighbours and with those countries that we want to have a better relationship with. And this sort of thing is neither dignified nor efficacious.
Indeed. So we do need them to be a little more statesmanlike. For now, it provides some diplomatic entertainment for other countries, but we do hope they can get serious and get back on track. Professor,
Yes.
Always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for taking out the time to speak to us. I hope to speak to you again sometime soon.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Always. Thank you. Now, the discovery of a new coronavirus variant triggered global alarm on Friday as